Good morning, everybody. Happy Monday. It's Monday, last week of July, middle of the summer. Hopefully, your summer's going well. Hopefully, you're working hard, putting the work in, making the advances so that you can have a good fourth quarter and a great 2025. Today, I want to talk about interest rates. It's Fed week. The Fed's meeting this week. It's widely believed they will not cut rates. However, the markets are 100% listening for what the Fed will say and what they'll signal. Many people believe that they will signal interest rates cuts are on the horizon, close on the horizon. The markets I think, believe that there's a 96% chance that we'll have at least a 25 basis points cut in September. I think it's 40% chance for a 50 basis points cut. We also want to listen to whether the Fed is going to continue loosening or whether they'll tighten. They could do that by how much runoff they let from their assets in SOMO. So there you go. Now, what I thought I'd do today is I would just go through a bunch of views on where interest rate policy is headed. And I went to do a post on LinkedIn this morning. However, it was too long, which forced me to convert it to an article. Because as you know, in LinkedIn, you can only have 3,000 characters in a post. You have unlimited characters in an article. And so I converted it to an article, although it really meant to be a post. And what I wanted to do is just give you different, analyst and economist view of what may happen. And the reason why this is important, it's not so that it's not so that we can understand how much business we're going to have, because really interest rates shouldn't matter. I understand that we think that as interest rates go up, business slows down, whether you're a real estate or a mortgage professional, and interest goes down. As interest rates go down, business goes up. I understand that, but I'm more in the camp of Hertz Schulte, who says as long as my competitor has one deal, then it's not the market. It's not my competitors kicking my butt. And I also agree with Shant, who at a guaranteed rate or rate now. And he says, I don't care about the market. I make my own market. If the market's down, I work harder. If the market's down 100%, I work 100% harder. I just capture more market share. I create my own market. So I believe that. I believe we create our own markets. We create our own results, regardless of what the volume is in the bigger market. With that said, we still, as advisors, we need to understand where interest rates are headed so that we can properly advise our clients. Right? Because we get paid a lot of money for our advice. It has to be informed advice. We can't say we don't know. And when we say what our opinion is, we should link it to maybe some facts or to an expert, and in addition to add our 2 cents. So I posted, I think, 6 different articles to give you a kind of a framework to create your own opinion, your own advice strategy. As I said, it's on my LinkedIn page under articles. In my article, and the article is The Challenge of Predicting Interest Rates is the name of the article. I list these 6 articles, published articles from different analysts, commentators, and economists. I put a link to every article, so if you want to check it out, go to my LinkedIn site. First article I highlighted was from Nick Timros, who works for the Wall Street Journal. Nick is known, as you might recall, as the Fed Whisperer, and that when the Fed was was radically changing their policy, they would leak kind of their direction to Nick, so Nick could put it out in the public, which would help control the Fed's message. And that by that way, he became the Fed Whisperer. And the Fed historically always has a whisperer, somebody they can link to help with their communication. And in Nick's article today, what he said is that the Fed is unlikely not to change interest rates this meeting, but they'll most likely signal future rate cuts as early as September. They'll also communicate that they're happy with where the labor market is. That's a very important signal for us. And that they're not as concerned about the last mile. And that last mile means they're not as concerned on getting interest rates to land at 2%. They're all right to come short of it if our direction is headed to 2%. And they're starting to change their focus from getting inflation under 2% to getting a soft landing and avoiding a recession. So that's what Nick's article is about. Check it out. Then from this weekend, from Saturday, I included a link to John Malden's Thoughts from the Front Line. His newsletter this last weekend was called A Sticky Last Mile. There's that last mile again. And in his newsletter, he argues for fewer cuts. He thinks There will either be maybe one small cut this year, and then probably that will be it. And he, in supporting his argument, he quoted Jim Bianco of Bianco Research and David Stockman, who is a former director of the OMB, about why the Fed should not be making cuts. So, John Malden has a different opinion than most of the market, right? Most of the market believes we're going to have cuts. And so it's good to know what's the opposite market, what's the opposite opinion, and why is that important to know? Well, it's important to know because last December, the market said we're going to have 7 rate cuts this year, and we so far haven't had any. If we'd only listened to that, we would have been very ill informed. We need to listen to both sides and then come to our own opinion, and then we need to interweave that opinion into our strategy and advice. So John makes the argument for fewer cuts. You should read that. It's a really well-written newsletter. I think you should probably, subscribe to it personally. And then the next article I put was actually more of a report or research paper. It was from Apollo. Torsten Slok is the main author. He has 2 other co-authors. You can check their names out at the check of the article. And I love his stuff because you know what? He doesn't necessarily argue for one thing or another. He doesn't necessarily take a position. What he does is show you a ton of data, and then you kind of decide. And in the report that I shared on my LinkedIn, is he listed like 15 leading indicators for inflation, and 12 of them are flashing red. That inflation, there's pressure on inflation, and he did things like, okay, we have super strong GDP, stronger than expected. We have strong retail sales. We have improving jobless claims. We have increased hotel occupancy. We have growing lending. We have lower bankruptcy filings. We have rising jet fuel demand. We have rising demand for Broadway shows and movie theaters. We have near record profits on the S&P 500. So he goes through leading indicators like those, and of the 15, I think 13 of them are suggesting there's pressure on inflation. And that would argue for the Fed to go slower. So it's interesting to read. That's fun looking at all those charts. You can look through all 20 charts in about 2 minutes. So check it out. Once again, give you an informed opinion that you can intertwine into your advice and strategy for your clients. And then I really like Sam Rowe. Sam Rowe is so sneaky good. He has a free newsletter and a paid newsletter from TKER. And he had usually he just puts out on Sundays, he usually just puts out like 100 charts. But he actually had a bit of an article in front of his charts, and what it was is why the Fed's first rate cut wouldn't be that big a deal. And it was very interesting. He goes, okay, the Fed's going to cut interest rates by 25% in September. Who cares? Like, given that they've raised rates 100 or 550 basis points, what's 25 basis points? And he likened it to if you're in your bedroom and it's 100 degrees and you turn the thermostat down to 95, it's still damn hot in your bedroom. And what that means is the Fed cutting back 25 basis points is nowhere getting them into a accommodative position. They're still highly restrictive today. And that's what he argues. It's a really interesting, he has a really interesting take, easy to understand. I like Sam Rowe quite a bit. So his argument is it's not a big deal. Like, who cares? And what he really wanted to talk about, there are other restrictive or accommodative strategies, and that's what he talks about in his article. That gets us to Kevin Warsh, who was a previous Fed member, had an editorial in the Wall Street Journal, and I think it was this morning. And the name of his editorial is "Interest Rates Are a Sideshow in the Fed Drama." And what he's talked about is, look, the Fed's balance sheet historically is around $600 to $800 billion, and right now it's at $7.3 trillion. It's so distortive, it's crazy, And he's like, look, when are we going to get our sanity back? The Fed shouldn't be holding $7 trillion in debt. The Fed shouldn't now be the engine behind financing, United States consumption. And so he's like, look, and here's the thing. He's like, every time the Fed has bumped up their balance sheets, they said it's temporary because of an emergency. And in his editorial, he's like, the Fed today has no appetite to reduce their holdings, none. And so that's going to cause all sorts of downstream economic problems. But it was an interesting article. That gets me to my the next article that I shared. I really like this article. I talked about it, I think, for 20 minutes on Saturday during my Facebook Live. That is Fiscal Dominance is Here. What that suggests is the Fed's, stated or unstated, their number one concern is making the debt palatable, or really the interest payments on debt. And in that article, why this article is so important, what this says is that the Fed is going to do everything in its power to drive down interest rates over the next 18 months. And if you were to believe this to be true, what you would believe is that we may see interest rates back in the fours because that's the only way the United States could afford the interest rate on their debt. And by the way, it's a very sage argument. I'll tell you something, and this is really interesting. I had never heard of this fiscal dominance before I saw the newsletter by RIA Advice, and it was written by Michael Leibowitz, and it just consumed me. It was a great article. And then today I went to go find it again so I could put a link, and I Googled fiscal dominance, and I was shocked by how many publications there are on fiscal dominance, and I mean publications by highly reputable economists. I mean, and this isn't my reticular activation system going, I read it once, I see it. I mean, I Googled it and I was shocked at how strong, whether it was the Financial Times or whoever happened to be, it is a very big topic. So if you believe that, then you believe interest rates are going to go down. Now, I was thinking about this. If I was going to create my own script, if I was going to be advising clients, here's what I'd say. Right now, interest rates are being dominated by Fed policy. The Fed is paying attention to two things. They need to get, inflation somewhere around 2%, and they also want to have a soft landing. They think that the plane's inside of the runway for their 2% goal, and they think it's now time to start to soften policy for that soft landing. And so we're going to see the Fed slowly cut interest rates. Interest rates will be cut very, very slowly over the next few months. But look that to accelerate as the Fed starts to fully concentrate on lowering the cost of interest on the United States debt in order to keep the United States solvent. And so the Fed will be very aggressive over the next 18 months in lowering interest rates. And so that's what you got. They'll be kind of sticky right now. They're going to be kind of, they're kind of going to stay roughly where they are. Because here's another thing, and I think that Rob Christman did a great job on this on a Saturday, is the market's already priced in the rate cut. So by the time the Fed cuts rates, our 30-year fixed mortgage rate will probably go up a little bit because the market's already overcorrected for the cuts they think are coming. Just as a total side note. But so probably going to be pretty flat rates the next 3, 4, 5 months. But then look for the Fed to really put the pedal down on lowering interest rates. And if I was going to be a long-term strategist, I think we're going to have low interest rates definitely by the end of next year. Low interest rates as in low fives, high fours. I think the Fed is 100% motivated to deal with this interest rate problem. So there you go. I would encourage you to read articles, my article, getting you access to these 6 articles I quoted. Read articles for yourself. It's not so that you can figure out, how you win in the marketplace, because you need to just do that by giving superior service, superior value, superior advice, superior sales skills, activities, all those things. But it is so that you can become a great advisor. That's it, everybody. I hope you have a great Monday, great start to your week. I will see everybody tomorrow. Thanks so much. Have a great day.